Part 1. The Unwanted Alliance. The conference room was cold. Valera sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on the polished table before her. She had been trained for this her entire life. Sit straight. Stay silent. Be beautiful. Be obedient. Be whatever they needed her to be. Today. They needed her to be a bride. Around the table, representatives from a dozen worlds spoke in loud voices. They argued about trade routes and military positions. They discussed technology and resources. They talked about her future as if she were not even there. To them, she was not there. Not really. She was just another piece on their political game board. High Consort Thriss, her mother, sat 3 seats away. She had not looked at Valera once since the meeting began. This was normal. Mothers in the Lytheran Empire did not coddle their daughters. They prepared them for duty. Valera's duty was clear now. She would marry a human. She would seal an alliance. She would save her empire from starvation and war. She should feel honored. That is what everyone told her. But all she felt was dread. Valera had heard stories about humans. They were young as a species, barely 200 years in space. They were emotional and unpredictable. They fought among themselves. Their cultures were chaotic, with no proper order to their society. Some of their females even gave orders to males. It was unnatural, disturbing, and now she would belong to one of them. The door opened. Valera did not look up. She heard footsteps, heard voices greeting the newcomers. She kept her eyes down, as was proper. "This is Engineer Doyon," someone said. "He will represent Earth in this union." Valera risked a small glance upward. The human was tall, with dark hair and tired eyes. He wore a simple uniform, not the elaborate robe she expected. He looked uncomfortable, his jaw tight as he listened to Ambassador Taiyang explain the terms of the arrangement. Du-Yun finally spoke. His voice was quiet but firm. "I understand the situation. When will I have the chance to speak with her?" There was a moment of confused silence. Speak with her? Chancellor Vran laughed. "She is Lytheran. She will obey. There is nothing to discuss." "I'd still like to speak with her," Doyon said. "If we're to be married, we should at least meet properly." Valera's heart beat faster. No one had ever asked to speak with her before. Not about something that mattered. "Very well," her mother said coldly. "Valera, stand." She stood immediately, her movements graceful and practiced. She kept her eyes lowered. This too was training. A proper Lytheran female did not meet a male's gaze unless given permission. She heard footsteps approaching. Then she saw his hand extend toward her. It took her a moment to understand what he wanted. A handshake. A human greeting. She had seen it in videos during her cultural preparation sessions, but she could not make herself reach out. In her world, males did not touch females except to claim them. To accept his hand felt like accepting ownership. She flinched backward. Doyon immediately withdrew his hand. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't mean to frighten you." Someone snickered. Valera felt her cheeks burn with shame. She had embarrassed herself. She had embarrassed him. "Lytheran females do not shake hands," Thriss said icily. "Perhaps you should learn our customs before you expect her to learn yours." "Of course," Doyon replied. He did not sound angry, just tired. "I apologize." The meeting continued. Valera stopped listening. She thought about her sister, married 5 years ago to a Lytheran lord. Her sister had returned home once, her face painted with the traditional marks but her eyes empty. She had said nothing about her marriage. Nothing at all. And their mother had praised her silence as proper behavior. Would that be Valera's future? A life of silence and emptiness? The terms were finalized quickly. 1-year trial marriage. She would live on his ship. If the alliance proved beneficial, the marriage would become permanent. If not, they would separate and other arrangements would be made. She was given 3 days to prepare. Those 3 days passed in a blur. Servants packed her belongings. Attendants painted her face with the marks of a new bride. Her mother gave her one final instruction. "Remember who you are." You represent the Empire. Do not shame us. Valera wanted to ask what that meant. How could she shame them? By speaking? By breathing? By existing? But she said nothing. There was never any point in asking questions. The transport ship that took her to the human vessel was small and efficient. Her 3 Lithuran attendants sat with her in silence. They would accompany her, her mother had explained, to ensure she maintained proper behavior. To report back if she failed. When the airlock opened, Valera stepped onto the Endeavor for the first time. It was nothing like Lithuran ships. Those were elegant and quiet, with smooth walls and soft lighting. This ship hummed with activity. People moved through corridors with purpose. She heard laughter from somewhere nearby. Actual laughter. On a military vessel, Doyan met her at the airlock. He had changed into casual clothes. Simple pants and a shirt. No ceremony. No formality. Welcome aboard, he said. He did not try to shake her hand this time. Instead, he gestured down the corridor. I'll show you to your quarters. Your quarters. Not our quarters? Valera had expected to be taken directly to his rooms. That was how Lithuran marriages worked. The wife lived in her husband's space, always available, always visible. They walked through the ship. Doyan pointed out different sections. The medical bay. The engineering deck. The common areas. People nodded at him as they passed. Some even nodded at her. She did not know how to respond. They stopped at a door. Doyan pressed his hand to the panel and it opened. These are your rooms, he said. You'll have complete privacy. I've set the access codes to recognize only you. No one can enter without your permission. Valera stared at him. I don't understand. It was the first time she had spoken directly to him. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. Your space, he repeated patiently. Private quarters. You'll want somewhere that's just yours. But you are my husband. In name, he agreed. But you didn't choose this? Neither did I. I thought we could both use our own space while we figure things out. He showed her the rooms. A bedroom. A small sitting area. A bathroom with water fixtures she would need to learn to use. Everything was simple but clean, functional. The temperature controls are here, he explained. If it's too cold or too warm, just adjust them. The food dispensary connects to the galley. You can request whatever you like. If they don't have something you need, tell me and I'll make sure we get it. Valera stood in the center of the room. She did not know what to feel. Relief? Confusion? Suspicion? I'll let you settle in, Doyan said. He moved toward the door, then paused. If you need anything, my quarters are 2 doors down. Or you can use the cum system. Let me know if you need anything. Why? The word escaped before she could stop it. He turned back. Why what? Why does it matter what I need? Doyan looked at her for a long moment. His expression was hard to read. Because you're a person, he said finally, and people have needs. That matters. He left before she could respond. Valera stood alone in her new quarters. Her attendants had been given rooms nearby. Her belongings were already being delivered. She should feel trapped. This was a cage, just a different kind of cage, but for the first time in her life she had a door she could close. A space that was hers alone. She sat on the bed and realized she was shaking. People have needs. That matters. No one had ever said anything like that to her before. Part 2. The Walls Between Worlds. The first week aboard the Endeavor passed slowly. Valera spent most of her time in her quarters, emerging only when summoned for formal dinners or diplomatic meetings. Her attendants accompanied her everywhere, watching, judging, reporting back to the Empire. She felt their eyes on her constantly. Doyan kept his distance. He greeted her politely each morning. He asked if she had slept well, if the quarters were comfortable, if she needed anything. Small questions that required only small answers. She learned to nod or shake her head. Words felt dangerous, but she watched him. She could not help it. She watched him in the corridors, stopping to help a young crew member carry heavy equipment. She watched him in the engineering bay, his hands covered in grease as he worked alongside people who wore lower rank insignia than his own. She watched him laugh at someone's joke in the galley, his whole face changing when he smiled. He was nothing like the males she had known. Lytheran males commanded. They did not serve. They did not touch tools meant for servants. They certainly did not laugh with their subordinates. She did not know what to make of him. The first formal dinner happened on her 8th day aboard. The senior staff gathered in the main conference room. Valera wore her traditional robes, her face painted with the proper marks. Her attendants had spent 2 hours preparing her. She looked perfect, empty, exactly as she should. She took her seat beside Doyun. The other humans talked among themselves, discussing ship business and colony reports. Valera kept her hands folded, her eyes downcast. This was familiar. She knew how to disappear even when present. Then a woman sat down across from her. She was young, with kind eyes and a warm smile. "Hello," she said directly to Valera. "I'm Hannah, Doyen's sister. I've been wanting to meet you properly." Valera's throat tightened. She glanced at Doyen, waiting for permission to respond. "It's okay," he said quietly. "You can talk to her." But the words would not come. Years of training held her silent. Hannah tried again. "I work in the medical bay. Xenobiology, mostly. I've been studying Lytheran physiology. It's fascinating. Your people have the most incredible regenerative abilities." She paused, her smile growing. "I was thinking maybe you'd like to visit the gardens tomorrow? We have a botanical section where we grow plants from different worlds. I thought you might enjoy seeing them." Valera's heart raced. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to see the gardens. She wanted to talk to this woman who spoke to her like she mattered. But her attendants were watching. Proper Lytheran females did not make plans on their own. They did not express wants. She remained silent. Hannah's smile faded slightly. She looked at Doyen. "Did I say something wrong?" "It's complicated," he replied. He looked at Valera with those tired eyes. In Lytheran culture, women don't usually speak in formal settings. Not without permission from the male head of their household. Hannah's expression changed. Something hard entered her eyes. "That's barbaric." "It's their culture," Doyen said carefully. "We can't judge." "I absolutely can judge," Hannah interrupted. She looked at Valera again. "You're on a human ship now. You don't need anyone's permission to speak. Your thoughts matter. Your words matter. You matter." The words struck Valera like physical blows. She felt tears threaten and force them back. Proper females did not cry. Not in public. Not ever. She stood abruptly and left the room. Her attendants followed, whispering disapprovingly in their native language. That night, Valera lay in her bed and stared at the ceiling. Your words matter. You matter. The words repeated in her mind. Part of her wanted desperately to believe them. But believing meant accepting that everything she had been taught was a lie. It meant acknowledging that her entire life had been built on making herself small and silent and invisible. It was too much. Too dangerous. The next morning, Doyen knocked on her door. She opened it cautiously. He stood in the corridor alone, holding a small device. "I'm sorry about last night," he said. "Hannah shouldn't have pushed like that. She means well, but she doesn't always understand how hard cultural differences can be." He held out the device. "This is a translator pad. I've loaded it with books, stories, histories, scientific texts. I thought, if you get bored, you might enjoy reading." Valera took the device slowly. "Thank you." "You don't have to thank me," he said. "It's just books." He started to leave, then turned back. "Valera, you don't need my permission to do things. I know that's hard to believe. But if you want to visit the gardens or the library or anywhere else on this ship, you can, anytime." After he left, Valera activated the translator pad. The first book that appeared was a simple story about a young girl who wanted to explore the stars. The girl in the story had dreams. She had desires. She had a voice. Valera read until her eyes hurt. Over the following days, she began to notice things. Small things? The way the crew treated each other. A junior engineer disagreed with a senior officer about a repair method, and instead of being punished, her idea was considered and implemented. A male crew member brought food to a female colleague who had worked a double shift. People said thank you. People said please. This was not how civilized societies worked. Lutheran society had order, structure, everyone knew their place. There was no confusion about who had power and who served, but there was also no laughter, no kindness, no warmth. She found herself spending more time outside her quarters. She discovered the observation deck, where massive windows looked out at the stars. No one bothered her there. She could sit and watch space drift by and read her books and think dangerous thoughts. One evening, she found Doyan there. He sat in one of the chairs, staring out at a nearby nebula. He looked sad. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "I can leave. You don't have to." He gestured to the empty seat beside him. "Please stay." She sat carefully, maintaining proper distance between them. They sat in silence for several minutes. It was not uncomfortable. "My wife loved this spot," he said finally. "She would sit here for hours, just watching the stars. She said it made her feel small and infinite at the same time." Valera hesitated. "What happened to her?" "Colony disaster. 5 years ago. A reactor malfunction. She was leading the engineering team trying to fix it when it exploded." His voice was flat, empty of emotion. "She saved 2,000 people. But she didn't save herself." "I'm sorry," Valera said softly. "Everyone's sorry." He closed his eyes. "I should have moved on by now. That's what people tell me. But I shut down instead. Threw myself into work. Stopped feeling things. It was easier." "Is that why you agreed to this marriage? Because you don't feel anything?" He looked at her then, really looked at her. "I agreed because my people needed me to. Same as you. We're both here because we have duties." He paused. "But that doesn't mean we have to make each other miserable. I've been thinking, maybe we could try being friends. Just friends. No pressure. No expectations. Just two people stuck in a situation neither of us wanted. Friends." Valera turned the word over in her mind. She had never had a friend. Lutheran females did not have friends. They had rivals and subordinates and superiors, but not friends. "I would like that," she whispered. Something changed between them after that night. Doyan started inviting her to meals in his quarters instead of the formal dining room. They were quiet meals, but comfortable. He told her about his work, about the colonies they protected, about his childhood on Earth. Growing up in a place where seasons changed and rain fell from the sky, she listened more than she spoke. But slowly, carefully, she began to share small things too. She told him about the books she was reading, about the plants in the botanical gardens that reminded her of home, about the music she could hear sometimes through the ship's walls. One day, 2 weeks after her arrival, her attendants made a mistake. They criticized her in Lithuanian, not knowing Doyan had entered the room. They said she was becoming improper, that she smiled too much, that she walked with too much purpose, like she thought she mattered. Doyan's face went cold. He responded in perfect Lithuanian. "Pack your things. You're leaving on the next transport." The attendants stared at him in shock. "You speak our language?" "I've been learning since the marriage was arranged." "Now leave. I won't have anyone speak to her that way." After they left, Valera stood frozen. "They'll report this. The Empire will be angry. Let them be angry." He looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "You deserve better than people who make you feel worthless. You deserve respect." That night, alone in her quarters with no attendants watching, Valera allowed herself to cry. Not from sadness, from something else. Something that felt dangerously like hope. Part 3, Breaking Chains. The alarm woke Valera from a deep sleep. Red lights flashed in her quarters as a voice announced over the ship's communication system. "All hands to emergency stations. Distress signal received. Repeat, all hands to emergency stations." She dressed quickly, her hands shaking. No one had told her what to do during emergencies. Should she stay in her quarters? Should she go somewhere? She opened her door and found the corridor full of running crew members. Hannah appeared beside her. Come with me. You'll be safer in the medical bay. Valera followed her through the ship. The medical bay was organized chaos. Doctors and nurses prepared equipment, readied beds, loaded supplies onto transport gurneys. Through the windows, she could see a damaged ship drifting in space. It was breaking apart slowly, pieces of hull peeling away like dead skin. Lytheran Colony Transport, Hannah explained, checking her medical scanners. Life support is failing. Doyen's leading the rescue team. He's going onto that ship? Valera pressed closer to the window. But it's falling apart, I know. Hannah's voice was tight. He does this. Every time. He won't send anyone into danger he won't face himself. They watched as small rescue shuttles launched from the Endeavor. The first shuttle docked with the dying transport. Minutes passed like hours. Then the shuttle returned, carrying survivors. Then it went back. And back again, the survivors flooded into the medical bay. Valera recognized their features, Lytherans, her people. They were injured, terrified, crying. The medical staff worked quickly, treating burns and broken bones and radiation exposure. I need help, a nurse called out. I've got 3 patients and only 2 hands. Before she could think about it, Valera moved forward. Tell me what to do. The nurse looked startled but nodded. Hold pressure here. Don't let go no matter what. Valera pressed her hands against a bleeding wound on an elderly Lytheran woman's arm. The woman looked up at her with pain-filled eyes. Thank you, she whispered. Stay still, Valera said gently. You're safe now. She worked through the chaos, following instructions, helping where she could. Her robes became stained with blood. Her hands shook with exhaustion. But she did not stop. Hours passed. Finally, Hannah touched her shoulder. That's the last of them. The transport's been evacuated. Valera looked around the medical bay. Every bed was full, but everyone was alive. She felt something strange in her chest. Pride, maybe? Or purpose. Then she saw Doyen entering the bay. His uniform was torn. Blood ran down his face from a cut above his eye. He was limping. But he was checking on the survivors, speaking to them in their own language, making sure they had what they needed. He noticed her staring. For a moment, their eyes met across the crowded room. Then his legs gave out. Valera ran to him. She caught him before he hit the floor, surprised by her own strength. Hannah, help! They got him onto a medical bed. Hannah scanned him quickly. Concussion. Cracked ribs. Radiation burns. What were you thinking going back in there 8 times? People needed help, Doyen said simply. His eyes were unfocused. Couldn't leave them. You could have died, Valera said. The words came out sharper than she intended. That ship was about to explode. Why would you risk yourself for strangers? He looked at her like the question confused him. There are people... That's enough. Something broke open inside her chest. She had spent her entire life being told that some people mattered more than others, that royalty was worth more than servants, that Lytherans were superior to other species, that males had value and females were decorative objects, but this human had risked his life for elderly Lytherans and children and common workers. Not because he had to, not because it would gain him political favor, but because they were people and people mattered, all people. Everyone. She turned and left the medical bay before anyone could see her crying. That night she could not sleep. She kept seeing Doyen carrying that elderly woman out of the burning ship. Kept hearing his words. They're people. That's enough. She found herself walking through the quiet corridors. Her feet took her to his quarters without conscious thought. She knocked softly. Come in, his voice called. He was sitting up in bed, a medical wrap around his ribs, a bandage on his forehead. He looked surprised to see her. Valera, is everything okay? Why? The question burst out of her. Why did you do it, really? You could have sent someone else. You could have done the minimum required. But you went back again and again. You carried people with your own hands? Why? Doyoung was quiet for a long moment. I told you. They needed help. But they weren't your people. They weren't human. Some of them would have treated you as inferior just for being human. Why save people who think you're beneath them? Because what they think of me doesn't change what they are, he said simply. They're living beings who feel pain and fear and hope. That matters more than politics or prejudice or pride. Valera sat down in the chair beside his bed. Her legs would not hold her anymore. In my world, I was taught that I don't matter, that I'm just a tool for the Empire to use, that my only value is in being beautiful and quiet and obedient. Her voice cracked. But if those people on that ship matter just because they're people, then do I matter too? Yes, he said it with such certainty that it stole her breath. You matter, Valera. You have always mattered. Not because of your bloodline or your beauty or your political value. You matter because you exist. Because you're a person with thoughts and feelings and the right to choose your own path. The tears came then. She could not stop them. Years of pain and confusion and silent suffering poured out of her. She cried for the child who was told to be quiet. For the girl who was trained like a show animal. For the woman who was traded like property. Doyoung did not tell her to stop. He did not look uncomfortable or disgusted. He just waited, patient and present. When she could finally speak again, she told him everything. About her childhood, where her interests were dismissed as inappropriate. About her sister, married off to a cruel man and returned broken. About the training, the endless training, in how to stand and sit and speak and move. About the fear that lived in her constantly, the fear that any mistake would bring punishment. I've never been allowed to choose anything, she whispered. Not what I eat, not what I wear, not what I learn or who I talk to or what I think. And now I'm here and you keep asking me what I want, and I don't know how to answer because no one ever cared what I wanted before? Then we'll figure it out together, Doyoung said. Start small. What's one thing you've always wanted to try, but never could? Valera thought about it. Learning. Real learning? Not the decorative accomplishments I was taught, but science, medicine, understanding how things work. Hannah would be thrilled to teach you, he said. She's always looking for people who want to learn xenobiology. Is that allowed? Allowed? He smiled slightly. Valera, you can do whatever you want. Learn anything. Study anything. Become anything. That's what freedom means. Freedom! She had heard the word before but never understood it. Now it felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. Terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. Over the next weeks, everything changed. Hannah became her teacher, showing her the medical bay's equipment, explaining biological systems and genetic structures. Valera discovered she had a natural aptitude for the work. She could see patterns in data that others missed. She asked questions that led to new insights. For the first time in her life, her mind mattered. Her curiosity was encouraged instead of punished. She felt herself waking up from a long sleep. She spent her evenings with Doyoung. They talked about everything and nothing. He told her about his late wife, about the grief that still caught him unexpectedly. She told him about the Lutheran Empire, about the cruelty hidden beneath elegant culture. They laughed together. They argued sometimes gently about philosophy and ethics. They sat in comfortable silence. Something was growing between them. Something warm and real and terrifying. One evening, Doyoung made a joke about his terrible cooking skills. Valera laughed. It was a real laugh, surprised and genuine and free. They both froze, staring at each other. Do that more, he said softly. Laugh more. Smile more. Be more yourself. I'm not sure who myself is yet, she admitted. Then we'll find out together. But the fragile peace could not last. 2 months after her arrival, Chancellor Vron appeared on the view screen. His face was cold with disapproval. We have received disturbing reports about Valera's behavior, he announced. She has been seen working in the medical bay. She speaks without permission. She has removed her traditional markings. This is unacceptable. Doyan stood firm. She's learning. She's growing. There's nothing unacceptable about it. She is Lithuran. She will behave as a Lithuran female should. We demand her immediate return for retraining. No, the word came from Valera. Everyone turned to stare at her. Her heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. I'm not going back. Vran's expression turned dangerous. You dare refuse? I dare. She stepped forward, standing beside Doyan. I'm not a child or a servant or a decorative object. I'm a person, and I choose to stay here. Then you leave us no choice, Vran said coldly. The alliance is dissolved, and you, Valera, are no longer part of the imperial family. You are disowned. A traitor. The screen went dark. Valera stood there, shaking. She had just lost everything. Her family. Part 4. The Price of Freedom. The days after Vran's announcement felt like walking through a nightmare. The Lithuran Empire made their position clear. Without the alliance, human colonies would receive no protection from Lithuran military forces. The Kryn Dominion, their longtime enemy, was already moving ships toward the border territories. Valera sat in the observation deck, watching distant stars and trying not to think about the war she might have started. Hannah found her there? It's not your fault, Hannah said, sitting beside her. How can it not be? Valera's voice was hollow. I refuse to go back. I chose myself over thousands of people who will die if the Kryn attack. You chose to be treated like a person. That's not wrong. It's never wrong. Tell that to the families of the dead. Hannah was quiet for a moment. My brother's late wife used to say something. She said that sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply refusing to be less than you are. You didn't start this, Valera. Your empire started it the day they decided females were property. But the guilt still ate at her? She threw herself into her work in the medical bay, trying not to think about what was coming, trying not to see the worried faces of the crew, trying not to hear the emergency meetings happening in the conference rooms. 3 days after the alliance collapsed, a new ship arrived at the Endeavor, a Lithuran royal transport. Valera's heart stopped when she saw it on the monitors. It's your mother, Doyan told her gently. High Consort Thriss. She's requesting permission to come aboard. Valera's hand started shaking. Don't let her, please. I can refuse if you want. But she says she's here to talk. Just talk, part of Valera wanted to hide. But another part, the part that was learning to be brave, knew she had to face this. Let her come. They met in the conference room. Thriss entered with all the cold grace of Lithuran royalty. She looked at Valera with eyes like ice. You look terrible. Your face is bare. Your clothing is common. What have they done to you? They've treated me with respect, Valera said quietly. Something you never did. Thriss's expression did not change. Respect? You call it respect to turn you against your own people? To make you think you're equal to males? To fill your head with dangerous ideas? I call it respect to ask what I want, to listen when I speak, to let me learn and grow and choose. Valera met her mother's gaze directly for the first time in her life. I call it respect to treat me like I matter. You matter as part of the Empire? As a tool to serve the greater good. Thriss stepped closer. Your selfishness has consequences, Valera? The Kryn Dominion masses forces at our borders. Human colonies will burn. Thousands will die. Because you could not do your simple duty. The words struck like physical blows. Valera felt the guilt crash over her again. I know. Then come home. Return with me now. Resume your proper place. I will convince the council to restore the alliance. All will be forgiven. And what happens to me? You will be retrained. Properly this time. You will learn to control your impulses. You will serve as you were meant to serve. Valera looked at Doyan. He stood near the door, his face carefully neutral. Giving her space to decide, not telling her what to do. Respecting her choice, even now she thought about the medical bay. About the books she was reading. About the person she was becoming. About the freedom she had tasted for just a few precious months. Then she thought about the families in the colonies. The children who would die. The people who trusted the endeavor to protect them. "I'll go," she said. "No." Doyan stepped forward. "Valera, no." "It's my choice," she said, her voice breaking. "You taught me that I could choose. This is what I choose. I won't let innocent people die for my freedom." "Your freedom is not negotiable," Doyan said fiercely. "We'll find another way. We'll negotiate with the Litherans. We'll strengthen our defenses. We'll do whatever it takes, but you are not going back to that." Thriss laughed coldly. How touching. The human thinks he can protect her from the consequences of her choices. But reality does not care about your feelings, engineer. Reality cares about power. And we have the power here. "Then we'll change reality," Doyan said. Before anyone could respond, Hana burst into the room. Her face was flushed with excitement. "I found something. Valera, I was reviewing the genetic data from the Lithoran survivors we rescued. There are anomalies. Serious ones. This is not the time," Thriss said sharply. "It's exactly the time," Hana continued. "Your people are suffering from genetic collapse. The breeding programs, the rigid caste system, the controlled reproduction, it's all catching up with you. You're losing genetic diversity at a catastrophic rate. In 3 generations, maybe 4, the Lithoran species will be functionally extinct." The room fell silent. Thriss's face remained cold, but something flickered in her eyes. Fear. "This is why you needed the Alliance," Valera said slowly, understanding dawning. "Not just for terraforming technology. You need human genetic material. You need genetic diversity to survive." "We need nothing from humans," Thriss said, but her voice lacked conviction. "How many other arranged marriages have there been?" Doyan asked. "How many other Lithoran females have been quietly traded to other species? All to introduce new genetic material without admitting weakness." Thriss said nothing. Her silence was answer enough. Valera felt something shift inside her. All her life, she had been told that the Empire was perfect, that their ways were superior. That order and tradition made them strong. But it was all a lie. They were dying, and rather than change, they were sacrificing their daughters to save themselves. "I need to tell them," she said. "The other Lithoran females, everyone who's being traded like property, they need to know the truth." "You will do no such thing," Thriss said coldly. "That information is classified at the highest level. Because if people knew, they might question the system," Valera said. "They might realize that maybe the old ways aren't working. And that maybe females are people who deserve freedom and choice." "You stupid girl. You would destroy everything for your selfish ideals." "No," Valera said. "I would give people the truth and let them choose for themselves. The way I was never allowed to choose." She looked at Doyan. "Can I use the ship's communication array?" He smiled. "It's all yours." What happened next would be talked about for years. Valera stood before the communication terminal and spoke in her native language. She spoke to every Lithoran in range. She told them about the genetic crisis, about the arranged marriages and the lies, about the way females were treated as tools rather than people. She told them about her life, about the fear and the silence and the emptiness. And then she told them about what she had found on the Endeavor, about respect and freedom and choice. "I don't know what the future holds," she said, "but I know this. We deserve better. All of us. We deserve to be treated like people. We deserve to choose our own paths. We deserve to matter." The transmission ended. For a moment, there was absolute silence. Then Thriss slapped her. Valera's head snapped to the side. Pain exploded across her face, but she did not cry. She turned back to her mother and stood tall. "That's the last time you'll ever touch me," she said quietly. Thriss looked at her daughter like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. The silent, obedient girl was gone. In her place stood a woman who had found her voice. "You've doomed yourself," Thriss said. "Chancellor Vran will declare you a traitor. You'll be hunted. Executed if they catch you, I know. Valera's voice was steady despite her fear. But at least I'll die free. Thriss left without another word. After she was gone, Valera collapsed into a chair. Her whole body shook. Doyan knelt beside her, not touching, just present. What have I done? She whispered. Something incredibly brave, he said. And incredibly dangerous. The Kryn will attack now. They'll see the Empire in chaos and strike. Then we'll fight, Doyan said simply. And hope that your words reach someone who can make a difference. 3 hours later, the Kryn Dominion attacked. The Endeavor went to full combat alert. Valera wanted to hide in her quarters, to pretend this was not her fault. But instead, she went to the medical bay. If people were going to die because of her, the least she could do was try to save them. The battle was fierce. The Kryn ships were powerful and numerous. The Endeavor and the small human fleet fought desperately, but they were outnumbered. People died. The medical bay filled with wounded. Valera worked until her hands were numb, following Hana's instructions, doing everything she could. Then, in the middle of the chaos, something impossible happened. Lithran ships appeared on the scanners. Not the full Imperial fleet, but dozens of ships. They moved to join the human forces. Fighting against the Kryn? Fighting to protect the Endeavor? What's happening? Someone asked. A communication came through. A Lithran female's voice. This is Captain Nissa of the Starfire. We heard your message, Valera. We're choosing to. We're choosing to fight for a better future. More voices joined in. More Lithran females, defying orders, bringing their ships to the battle. It was not enough to win. But it was enough to turn the tide. Together, human and rebel Lithran forces drove the Kryn back. When the battle ended, Valera stood in the observation deck and watched the mixed fleet. Human and Lithran ships flying together. Not because of a forced alliance, but because people had chosen to stand together. Doyan found her there. He had a cut on his cheek and exhaustion in his eyes. Part 5, A New Future. The weeks after the battle were chaos. The Lithran Empire fractured into factions. The traditionalists, led by Chancellor Vran, demanded Valera's execution and the return of all females to their proper places. The reformers, a growing movement of both males and females, called for change. And caught in the middle were thousands of confused, frightened people trying to understand what was happening to their world. Valera became something she never wanted to be. A symbol, a leader. Every day brought new messages from Lithran females across the Empire. Some thanked her. Some begged for help escaping abusive situations. Some cursed her for destroying their way of life. She tried to answer them all, working late into the night until Doyan or Hana forced her to rest. The Endeavor became a refuge. Lithran females who fled their homes came seeking asylum. The ship was not designed to house so many people. They set up temporary quarters in cargo bays and repurposed storage rooms. It was crowded and chaotic and beautiful. These women were learning to speak, to choose, to be, but there were costs. 3 times, Lithran assassins tried to reach Valera. Once, a bomb was found in the medical bay. The stress showed on everyone's faces. They could not keep living like this forever. Then High Consort Thriss requested another meeting. This time, she came alone. No guards, no attendants, no political advisors. Just a mother facing her daughter. They met in Valera's quarters. It felt strange, having her mother in this small space that had become her sanctuary. Thriss looked older than Valera remembered, tired. I came to tell you something, Thriss said without preamble. I have joined the reformers. I am using my influence in the council to push for changes to our laws regarding females. Valera stared at her. Why? Because I watched the recordings of the battle. I saw Lithran females commanding their own ships, making tactical decisions, fighting with courage and skill. Thriss's voice was quiet. I saw what our daughters could be when given the chance. And I realized what we had stolen from them. What I had stolen from you. You want forgiveness, Valera said flatly. No, Thriss met her eyes. I want you to know that I see you now. Really see you. and I am ashamed of the mother I was. I cannot undo the past, but I can work toward a different future." She paused. "The council is divided. Vran has significant support. There will likely be civil war. The Empire may not survive this." "Maybe it shouldn't," Valera said. "If it can only exist by crushing half its people, perhaps." Thriss stood to leave. At the door, she turned back. "You were always strong, Valera. I just taught you to be silent about it. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for all of it." After she left, Valera sat alone in the quiet and cried. Not for what was lost, but for what might have been if things had been different from the start. The political situation remained tense for months. But slowly changes began. Some Lytheran territories officially recognized female rights. Schools opened where girls could learn science and engineering. Trade agreements were signed with human colonies, based on mutual respect rather than desperation, and through it all, Valera worked. She completed her xenobiology studies with Hana. She helped establish medical protocols for treating genetic disorders in Lytheran populations. She spoke at conferences and meetings, always pushing for more change, faster change, but she also made time for herself. For the first time in her life, she had hobbies. She learned to paint. She discovered she loved human music, especially the old songs from Earth. She made friends among the crew, real friends who liked her for who she was, and she spent her evenings with Doyan. Their relationship had shifted over the months. The political marriage was essentially meaningless now. The Empire had disowned her. The alliance had transformed into something different. They could annul the marriage and no one would blame them, but neither of them wanted that. One evening, 6 months after the battle, Doyan found her in the botanical gardens. She was sitting among the flowers, reading a medical journal on her datapad. He sat beside her. "I've been thinking," he said. "About us." Valera's heart jumped. "Oh, this marriage we're in? It was forced on both of us. We had no choice in it. And I keep thinking that's not fair. Not to you, especially after everything you've been through." "What are you saying?" Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "I'm saying I want to give you a choice." He turned to face her fully. "If you want to end this marriage, I'll support that completely. You deserve to build your life however you want, with whoever you want. No obligations. No pressure." Valera looked at him. At this man who had given her space when she needed it, support when she asked for it, and respect always. This man who had stood beside her through revolution and war. This man who was now offering to let her go? "And if I don't want to end it?" she asked. He looked surprised. Then we could try making it real. Not a political arrangement. Not a duty. Just two people who choose each other. "I choose you," Valera said. The words felt powerful. "Not because I have to. Not because it serves some political purpose. But because you showed me what it means to be treated with respect. You helped me find my voice. You stood with me when everyone else said I was wrong. I choose you, Doyan, if you'll have me, if I'll have you." He laughed, and there was relief in the sound. "Valera, I've been falling for you for months. I just didn't think I had the right to say it. You were finding yourself, becoming yourself. I didn't want to complicate that." "It's not complicated," she said. "It's actually the simplest thing I've ever felt." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She did not. His hand cupped her face gently. "Can I kiss you?" "Yes," she breathed. The kiss was soft and sweet and felt like coming home. They decided to marry again. Properly this time. The ceremony was nothing like the cold political theater of their first wedding. It was small and warm, held in the botanical gardens with friends and chosen family. Hannah officiated, grinning widely. Several of the Lytheran females who had taken refuge on the Endeavor attended. Even Thriss came, standing quietly in the back, tears in her eyes. Valera wore a simple dress she had chosen herself. No painted marks of subservience. No elaborate robes. Just her, as she was. When it came time for vows, she spoke clearly. "I was taught that my words did not matter. That my choices did not matter. That I did not matter. You showed me I was wrong. You showed me what respect looks like, what freedom feels like, what love means. Her voice caught. I choose you, today and every day. I choose us. Doyen's vows were simpler. I promise to always see you, to hear you, to walk beside you, not in front of you or behind you, but beside you, always. The crew cheered. Hannah hugged them both. It was perfect in its imperfection. The political situation continued to evolve. The Lytheran Empire did not collapse, but it transformed. Slowly, painfully, Vran maintained control of some territories where things remained as they had always been. But other areas embraced change. It was messy and complicated, and Valera knew it would take generations to fully heal the wounds of the past. But change was happening. That was what mattered. Valera established a formal program on the Endeavor, a safe haven for Lithoran females seeking asylum. She worked with Hannah to develop treatments for the genetic disorders plaguing Lytheran populations. She became an ambassador between the human colonies and the reformist Lytheran territories. She was busy, fulfilled, happy. 2 years after the battle, she stood in the medical bay, reviewing test results. Hannah looked over her shoulder and gasped, "Are those your results?" Valera nodded, her hand unconsciously moving to her stomach. "I wanted to be sure before I told anyone. You're pregnant." Hannah's eyes went wide. "A human-Lytheran hybrid. That's never happened before, I know." Valera felt a mixture of excitement and terror. "I don't know what complications there might be. The genetics are complex. We'll figure it out," Hannah assured her. "But Valera, this is incredible. This child will be a bridge between species. A symbol of what's possible when we choose cooperation over conquest." "This child will be a person," Valera said firmly. "Not a symbol. Not a political tool. Just a person who deserves to choose their own path." She told Doyen that evening. He was working in engineering, covered in grease as usual. When she told him, he froze. Then his face broke into the widest smile she had ever seen. "A baby," he whispered. "We're having a baby. Are you happy?" she asked. "Unterrified," he admitted. "And thrilled. And grateful. And a dozen other things." He pulled her close, careful of her belly. "Thank you. For choosing this. For choosing us." "It was an easy choice," she said. "The pregnancy was difficult. The genetics were complicated, and there were challenges no one had encountered before. But Hannah and the medical team worked tirelessly. And 9 months later, Valera gave birth to a healthy daughter. They named her Jiwoo. It meant wisdom and universe. When Valera held her daughter for the first time, she made a promise. "You will always know you matter. You will always have a voice. You will always have the right to choose your own path." 3 years after that first forced meeting in a cold conference room, Valera stood in the observation deck of the Endeavor. The ship now orbited a newly established colony, a joint venture between humans and reformist Lytherans. Below, she could see the city growing. Humans and Lytherans working side by side. Doyen joined her, carrying their daughter.